Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon if that's when I upload this. But welcome back to the Brew with Matt and Mike. Hope everyone is having a great Saturday so far. And Mike just played two pretty high-level games, and he's been playing really well in Puerto Rico. And his team just defeated Jay Crowder's team in Puerto Rico. I know that's a familiar name for the audience here, and I would say Mike kind of mogged Jay Crowder a little bit, and he went 2 of 4, 2 of 5 from 3. And two of his misses were all the way down and out. I let out a little yell in frustration that those didn't fall for you. But I know your family was down there with you, watching and supporting you, hanging out with you. Mike, give the viewers a little update. What's going on with you?
Oh man, life is super beautiful right now. To be honest with you, man, I've been really enjoying the season. I've been playing really well, playing at a high level, shooting the leather off the ball. I think I'm shooting about. I think I'm second. I'm either first or second in my league in 3-point shooting percentage right now. Just found like some zen and some consistency within my jumper, and had a great game. We won, which is the most important thing. I like to score and I like to play well, but playing well and winning is always the recipe for me being even a happier human than I already am. But yeah, everything is really good. And then next week I get to go to Japan to go play some 3-on-3. I got the clearance from the federation here. They're trying to get me qualified so I can play on the national team in the World Championships in June. So that's great. And then, my older brother came down with his family and got to see my two nephews. They came and saw me play. They're starting to get of age where they, try and replicate me a little bit. So I got to mind my P's and Q's a little bit more on the court. So I was still animated. I still have my moments, but I definitely was catching myself on what I was saying and what they would see. So trying not to complain as much or work the refs as much as I normally do. So it was great having them down here, and just a friendly reminder of how small I am in my family. My brother's 6'9". He's in really great shape right now. He's probably in the best shape he's been since he was in high school. And I just looked at him and I was like, dude, this dude's like Sully from Monsters Inc. Like, man, he's just a huge dude. And so I just forget that I'm small in my family, and it's really weird because I walk around all the time, and I'm a big person most of the places I go. And then it was funny, we would walk into we walked into a bakery this morning, and we got more than a few head turns. So both of us walking in, big humans walking in that way. So man, life is really good. I had a great visit with my family, and then getting to catch up with Matt again. Man, it's been a couple days, so I'm excited to get back on here and chop it up with you.
Let's go. And you said that you had your nephews in mind. You wanted to set a good example, but I thought your ass should have been teed up 2 games ago. Absolutely should have been teed up. I know you were throwing in a headlock and you got elbowed, all of that. I think you should have got teed up. I'm surprised you didn't.
It helps when you try and yell, when you speak at them in their language, and you can be a little bit more polite. But I was angry. Definitely got an elbow. I got elbowed in the chest, and I looked at him. I was like, yo, what are we doing here? We're letting people just do that? All right, cool. So, but I have a relationship with some of the officials out here because I played here multiple years. So they kind of know, because I don't use crazy words with them or anything like that. I'm just like, very stern at times. So I kind of know where to push my limits and which guys I can push, which guys I can't, which one's going to look at me crazy and go, say one more word and see what happens. So I have a good barometer of where I can go and when I can't. The guy who I went after the other night, like, he knows who I am. We've had conversations off the floor, and always, like, during games, after games, I'll always go to him. My bad, I was a little aggressive there. Thanks for not fining me. So we have that rapport with guys out here, which can help, especially if you work with them for multiple years.
So are you? I mean, I just imagine you when you're 70 years old. You're gonna be wearing a fedora. You're just going to be this old wise man, just kind of sharing stories and legends. I kind of envision you being a local legend around there. Are you well recognized in the parts where you stay?
Yeah. Like, I would say, there's not a lot of guys that look like me down here.
Yeah.
And then, me speaking Spanish and really learning the language and just having an appreciation for the culture down here and really falling in love with the island and sharing my love for the place that I live. I get a lot of respect just based off of that, and especially me going to school and being able to speak the language relatively well, being able to communicate in the language that they are. I get quite a bit more respect from the locals. They kind of look at me like, you're not just some gringo that came down here to take advantage of tax breaks in the sun. It's like you came down here to immerse yourself in the culture. So I get a lot of I get a lot of extra, not quite the side eye that other guys would get, just because I did do that, and I really do live here. So when I go out, there's people that recognize me. Obviously, the basketball culture down here is huge. Me being a taller person, very fair skinned with some longer red hair and a beard, I'm pretty easily recognizable, like I said. So, when I go places, people kind of know who I am. Or, oh, do you play basketball out here? Yeah, I do. I play for this team, and I'm very friendly. I'm very open to speak to people about it because I appreciate it. They're interested in me, and I know that's not a common thing in life normally. So I try and take advantage of it as best I can, and I take advantage of the interest of people in me and see where that takes me. If it could be just a friendly handshake and a picture, cool. If it's, hey, maybe a business relationship or something happens later, that would be great as well. But there's, it's, for me, it's really fun, and especially in the area now down here, I'm trying to make this more my place where I live now in the city that I'm in now. I'm going to move out here after the season, and I've been inviting the neighborhood. I know my neighbors. Both my neighbors are coming to the game tomorrow. Like I see them every day. When I go to the bakery or I go to different restaurants, I'm passing out tickets left and right like they're candy, trying to just make as many friends, make as many connections as I can out here. So definitely in certain areas, and especially when you get into the basketball community. The basketball community, when you get into this level, is very small. So people know me, people recognize me. Hey, oh, you had a great game the other night. I always appreciate that. It's really fun for me to kind of be in this position I am in now, and I definitely don't take any of it for granted.
Yeah, that's why I say I've been telling Mike he's the Dos Equis guy. Here he is, just the 6'7" guy making connections with everyone on the island. I know that not every single player makes relationships with the refs where he knows, okay, that one I can push, that one I can't. Talking to them off the court, making all these connections. You're the Dos Equis guy. Mike's the most interesting man in the world. He's doing interviews in Spanish. And I love to see you get so fired up. I love seeing you get so angry in the game since you're so chill in this setting in your regular life. And I love that switch can be flipped. So from now on, I'm making that Dos Equis theme song from the commercial like 15 years ago about the world's most interesting man. That's Mike's theme song moving forward.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Then one last thing before we start talking some Badger hoops is, Mike, you're looking a little tan there, all right? And my question for you is, as a redhead who's living down in Puerto Rico, or Puerto Rico as some people like to say, are you abusing sunscreen?
No, so it's funny. So my family was down here, my brother and his kids, and they went through a family-sized bottle of sunscreen for the kids. My brother, he's 6'9", like 250 right now. So, he's got the frame of a football player. So he's got a big surface area. His wife is a taller woman as well. So they got some big surface area to cover, and they went through a full bottle, and I was like, I'm good. I usually wear sun shirts. So big secret is sun shirts out here. You can get some shirts that do the job of sunscreen. Another small secret I'll give you guys is early morning sun. If you go and get that 6 a.m. sun early morning, you get those infrared lights and infrared sun, and that different level of UV. It actually prepares your skin for the harshness of later in the day. I hang out in the shade a lot. I wear hats.
Fedoras?
And I've lived in, no fedoras. Oh. Beach hats, no fedoras. I have a fedora. It's for special occasions.
Like some cafe with the fedora where you can barely see his face reading the newspaper, and
that can be me at times. Yeah, that can be my times. But that my biggest thing is my skin actually has gotten quite a bit used to the UV down here. I was working as a snorkeling guide when I was down here a few times, for a couple of years. So that helped my skin really get used to being in the UV. I'm much blonder than I normally am when I'm up north in the places where, the UV index is much, much lower. So for me, I don't really abuse sunscreen. I still use it. I definitely put it on my face and things like that. But the copious amounts that my brother and his family put on, I was like, oh, no, I can't do that. Can't do that. Won't do that. That's not for me. I definitely have benefited from living here long enough. And I think some of the food has helped me too, eating plantains every day for whatever reason helps me deal with sun.
Let's go. Now I know. And I hate putting on sunscreen as well. I hate the smell. I hate the feel. I hate how dirty I feel after I sit in the sun with sunscreen. It's the worst. Not a fan.
Yeah.
So
not a fan of the film side. I would say this, yeah, Matt, when you go on vacation or when you come down here, we're going to get up at 6. We're going to go out. We're going to, get our first early morning light,
A
let our
little
skin, let our
meditation.
system, yeah, let your skin get used to that UV. Because that's the biggest thing is people really forget is like, if you just go out at 12 o'clock at the highest point, like your skin is just like, oh, all right, cool. Like it's kind of the boiling, the water, what is it, the frog in the boiling pot? If you leave it in there, it can, and you boil it slowly, it'll stay. And that's kind of what your skin can do. I think is it's built for that. You're made to actually withstand the sun, but you got to do the proper, the proper technique, the proper how do you say this, calendar, or I'm thinking calendario. I'm thinking in Spanish. My bad. The proper steps to prepare yourself to go outside.
Yeah, that's a high level analogy there with the frog. High level stuff here on the Brew. And let's get into a little Badger hoops because that's I imagine why you guys clicked on this video, but also you guys enjoy the banter as well. So let's get into some Badger hoops though. All right. So Nolan Winter, the reports are saying that he's likely back, and Mark Van Wedden, I don't have his name down, pardon me, but I'll just say the Badgers GM. He said that he feels pretty good about retaining the rest of the roster, which I think is a massive dub. So Nolan Winter back, retaining the roster, bringing this guy in from Australia, the point guard. I think things are looking pretty good. Mike, if I told you before the portal, hey, Bieliauskas and Blackwell are gone, but we retain everybody else and we'll bring some portal guys in. We have the incoming freshmen. Is that a dub?
So two things. First thing, before I answer your questions, Mark Vanderwedding.
Okay, Vanderwedding
Is his name.
Okay.
So he was actually a manager, and he was the lead manager when I was in school. So big respect for Mark. I've known him, when I was in high school, or I mean, when I was in college, not high school. When I was in college, he was with the program. So he is a staple in Wisconsin right now. Like he has been there for 10 plus years. So when he got the GM job, it was really cool to see him. He really worked his way up. So happy for him and what he's achieved. And then, yeah, in terms of, what we've retained and what we've lost so far, not everything is official at the moment, but, losing Bieliauskas and losing Blackwell, we kind of talked a little bit off camera, and thank you for sending me that article. Matt did a little bit of extra research and helped your boy out. So appreciate that. But yeah, I think that's a win. Obviously we don't want to lose Blackwell. That's a big blow for us, losing 20 points a game, all conference guy, really led the way in a lot of different ways. And then Bieliauskas, I was really excited to see his jump. That was one thing that I was really disappointed in. I think we kind of knew that Blackwell, and you talked about this and alluded to this earlier, that people around the program thought he might not be back, and his asking price might not be, it might not fit into the Badgers' plans. But the Bieliauskas one, I'm really disappointed in, to be honest with you. I thought I was really excited to see what his growth was going to be like, just because I liked his size, I liked his physicality, I liked the things he did, the floor game he had, which added to the value of the team so much. But, I think also that opens up and frees up some resources for us to go get a different style of big too. Maybe a bigger rim runner, maybe something else. Obviously the program, has their process of trying to figure out who they're going to bring in. And for me, it's not a end of the world, because also like everybody's like, oh, we lost Blackwell, we lost Bieliauskas, what's happening? It's like, if you look at any other program right now, they've lost guys too. It's not just a Wisconsin problem. It's a college basketball program. Top blue bloods are losing guys. Mid majors. We talked about it. The MAC conference. The mid majors are done, right? Like all the players on the all conference, second team, first team, and honorable mention are out of the MAC conference. So, teams are going to not be able to retain everybody. It's free agency. It's professional free agency right now, and retaining guys is going to be a challenge. So only losing two, getting back Nolan Winter, probably. Nothing is official yet, but from everything we've, sources have kind of hinted at, like, nah, he's coming back to Wisconsin. That's a big piece, right? That's a lengthy, switchable Swiss Army knife of a big who can stretch the floor. I love the fact that we retained our stretchability with Winter and with Rapp. Love that for us. Like that's a weapon that is hard to find and hard to replicate, and especially with them coming back and the consistency they need. So really excited about that. Matt, what do you think? How do you feel about us obviously losing two pieces from a team that was really good, and then we have to replace a bunch of seniors? But, knowing what the roster is going to probably look like this coming year, what do you think is? And my next question for you then is, what do you think we need to add through the portal and to go ahead and put this team back on the map where they were this year?
Well, they in the portal they got to up their defense and physicality on the perimeter. The defense was obviously a weak point, and I wonder how much I like John Blackwell, like his game, especially in the offensive end. But I wonder if defensively that'll be addition by subtraction, is not having him out there for 35 minutes. So what they need is better perimeter defense, and then the question is, what are they going to do about an anchor down low? Is that going to be Will Garlock, or are they going to have to go to the portal, or a little bit of both, right? Because right now, I'm guessing that Rapp's going to be the power forward. I'm guessing Winter's going to be the center. And we'll see, but that's my guess right now. And then I also think they have the point guard figured out. I think the guy from Australia, Foxwell, I think he's going to be the starting point guard. So, yeah, 3 of the 5 starters figured out. And it's April 11th as we record this. My dad's birthday. Happy birthday to my old man. But
happy birthday, Pops.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But with that being said, is like we have that figured out. Then you have Garlock coming off the bench. All the reports within the program that Garlock is dunking his head through the hoop. He's the best dunker on the team, people are saying, and he's a legit 7 foot. He's physically really solid. He's just got to grow into his large human body. So they are analyzing him every day. They know kind of where he's at and if he can take that big jump. I think that'd be great if they can rely on him internally and not have to pay the millions of dollars for an external big man who could protect the hoop. And I'm just interested to see. And it kind of sounded like the GM hinted at they might be adding another rim runner, a guy to protect the hoop, send shots back. So we'll see. But I'm very encouraged. I think it's disappointing that Bieliauskas left because he had such a good situation at Wisconsin. I know he'll make more money elsewhere. But when they beat Purdue with him and Rapp starting at the 4 and 5, and they beat Illinois with them starting together, it's like, holy cow, they found something really, really good. But it's just the reality of college basketball right now is that Bieliauskas averaged less than 5 points per game, averaged 4 rebounds per game, less than a block per game. And you have to pay millions of dollars if you want to retain them. And something tells me that with paying Winter and paying Rapp and as well as Garlock, that it's like, hey, we want you back, but this is all we can give you. That's my assumption as to what happened. And Bieliauskas is like, hey, that school wants to pay me that much more. He's going to make more money. I understand. But there is something to be said about being in a good situation. What's the return on investment in the development of staying at one place? That's what you have to weigh in. And that's why I think a lot of these kids get it wrong. I'm not saying he is wrong, but he might be. And he had a great thing. And him and Winter really meshed together. So I'm disappointed. But let's see what happens. Overall, losing Blackwell, Bieliauskas, nothing's official yet. But that's a pretty good start if it's only them. Let's see what Wisconsin can do in the portal. I do have a little insight as to one of the guys they're going after. I don't know if I'm allowed to say. I don't want the person to be upset with me, but I like this guy. My hint will be I've interviewed him on the show, and he didn't go to Wisconsin. He's a major guy. So, I like adding him potentially. I like adding him. I think he'd be a good wing piece.
Nice. Love to hear that. If you guys want to go back in some past episodes and check out Matt's stuff, maybe a little Easter egg here. I love this. I didn't even know you were going to do that. We talked.
It just kind of came on. I was monologuing and it just came out.
I love it. I love it, man. I love it, man. That's going to be great. And then, I have one more question for you. Sometimes with the portal pieces, you got to try and figure out the staff, right? And you got to figure out your coaching pieces as well as the administration pieces. One thing I think Wisconsin has right now is a very distinct advantage is their staff is all Wisconsin guys and knows the culture. So how much do you think that is an advantage that we have retained Coach Gard? We have retained our coaching staff. We have retained that consistency that has been built for years now. How much does that give us an advantage of not having to go through and hiring a new coach? And, everybody go, oh, we want to fire this guy to bring in something new and shiny. And it's like, yeah, but that's really challenging. So what do you think the advantage that Wisconsin is going to continue to have now that we know that Coach Gard is going to be there, that staff's going to be there moving forward?
I think it's absolutely massive. One, what I like is that it still makes Wisconsin. In the age of all this roster turnover, when every single staffer is a Wisconsin Badger through and through, that retains culture, even if the players you won't see the same continuity with the players. So I think that is absolutely huge. I think Purdue does the exact same thing, where they are loaded with Matt. They have Matt Painter, who's been there forever, and then he's got a bunch of former players on his staff. I think that is super, super important in establishing a culture. Wisconsin's a culture-heavy program, so I think that's massive. And two, I really think that Greg Gard, just talking about him a little bit, kind of pivoting here, is he kind of scared, I think, people a little bit. He gave an interview and he was just open. I think he was trying to get people off his back a little bit over the disappointing first round loss, where he was open about saying, yeah, we are in the bottom half. He pretty much hinted that Wisconsin's in the bottom half of NIL and that other schools are paying ridiculous amounts that Wisconsin just can't match. But what that also tells me is Gard is doing a fantastic job. Gard and his staff, the diamonds in the rough they're finding, the John Blackwell, who has 0 offers going to Wisconsin, is his only high major offer. Finding John Tonje, who was committed to a mid-major and is one of the best players in college basketball. That's incredible. Nick Boyd. I mean, they won him over some big boys. They won Boyd over some big boys, but he was like ranked number 90. That was their big land, was number 90. So, yeah, this staff having Gard balling out on a budget like the Milwaukee Brewers are, and then also retaining the culture. It's absolutely massive. And Mike, I want to ask you the next question, and 2 questions kind of in one. And actually, I'll ask this one. Then I'll ask the following one after that. But and answer this in a timely fashion to give me a nice clip. Okay. So We're going to go. What are the odds, Mike, that Nolan Winter, if he does come back for his senior year, has a Frank Kaminsky level season? Hey, you know what? Let me run that back. Let me run that back. Mike, if Nolan Winter does come back for his senior year, what are the odds that he has a Frank Kaminsky adjacent season where he pops off?
I think he has a high opportunity to do so. I think it's not out of the realm. Now, we got to look back. Frank Kaminsky's 2015 National Player of the Year campaign, that's one of the better college basketball campaigns from a big man that has been ever had in college basketball.
Yes, it is.
He genuinely statistically, he was so efficient. That team was so efficient, both, top to bottom, and he was the head of the snake. But they had a few other guys that could have been head of the snakes anywhere else in the country, right? Sam Decker could have been. They had some dudes on that team. So I don't think he can have an adjacent season. I really love Nolan Winter's game. I think he's actually a better rebounder than Frank was. But offensively, Frank was on another level in terms of skill wise, at least what he had shown, because he had shown in his junior year, in terms of the ability to step out and shoot. They have some similarities. I think Frank just had such a dominant post game that, he could get to that drop step. And he was so, he's a full 7-footer and he had such good range on that drop step that he could get to that wherever he wanted to. He had counters. I think his game was just a little bit more evolved offensively. But I think Nolan Winter can definitely have an All-American type season. I'm going to mark him down as first team All Big Ten. Hopefully he can continue to do that. That requires some team success, but Nolan Winter can have, a dominant year in the Big Ten across the country. And I think he can push this team to, other heights, get out of that first round, get out of that first weekend. I think he's going to come back with some vengeance.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is that he won't have Blackwell and Boyd alongside him this year. So there's a good chance this is Nolan Winter's team. They'll bring in some guys, but will it be 2 guards who are averaging nearly a combined 40 points? I doubt it, but we'll see. So I think that's an opportunity for Nolan Winter to really shine. And he did shoot 70% from the field these last 2 seasons from 2. And then he had such a slow start from 3 this year, but he finished 32.6% from 3, shot 35.6% in conference. And he played on a much faster tempo team than Frank did when Frank was a junior versus Nolan Winter, but their stats are pretty similar in some ways. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I would not be surprised if Winter is absolutely the man. We saw him expand this last year, and he's a bit of a late bloomer. And I know that Wisconsin saw this coming with him. They put all the chips in on Nolan Winter, and the kid from Pewaukee, Milan, I don't want to butcher his last name. There was a reason that he went to Iowa State and not Wisconsin. Wisconsin did not go hard after Milan, and Milan was like a top 50 guy in the country. And everyone's like, why did they not push it? It's because they believed in Nolan Winter. And I think they're going to reap the benefits. They reaped it really these last 2 years, especially this year. But I think next year we're going to see a beastly Nolan Winter. And the last question before we wrap this episode up, Mike, is Nolan Winter and
Nolan
Austin Rapp. Yeah, Nolan Winter and Austin Rapp together. Rapp was obviously removed from the starting lineup and just evolved, improved as the season went on. But it was a much different story when they were starting together. Do you think next season, if they start together, we can see them mesh well?
Yeah, I think they can. I think the biggest thing that the problem was with Rapp early is he was still figuring out how to be a complete basketball player and not just a shooter. And he was just like, he was hanging his hat on his ability to make 3-point shots. And after that Penn State game in conference, he kind of got himself going. He had a couple of really good rebounds. He knocked a couple shots down. He had really good tough catches on rolls to the rim. And then from that point on, he grew into a complete basketball player where defensively he was able to hold up in switches and hold up and rebound and get in there and be gritty and finish around the basket. So he really rounded out his game as he grew in his confidence. And it was less, if I don't make shots, it was more like if he didn't make shots, there was really no reason to have him on the floor. And then it turned into, okay, he can make shots, but we have 6 other reasons to keep him on the floor. So I think him going into next year with that combination, he's added those pieces. He's going to be in the weight room another year. He's going to have another year to develop his feet, figure out, how to deal with those long limbs of his and just grow into his body another year. I think that combination will work beautifully together. I think it's a really, really lethal combination in terms of spacing. The biggest thing is, when you have 2 spacing bigs like that, you got to figure out the chemistry of when they pop and when they roll. But I think that's going to be something that he's going to get coached up on. He's got really good development guys there. Greg Steamson's there as a big man coach that can really help him figure out what to do with that. As well as, Gard has been able to coach these guys up in a manner that allows him to do so. So I think that, early in the year last year, we're what, 8 months removed from that, 7 months removed from when he first showed up on campus and started playing as a starter. I think he's going to come back a completely different player. He started showing how complete of a player he can be, and that's only going to grow, I think.
Sure. No, and I think that's a great point to wrap this up at. Like, this was a high-level episode, if you ask me. And before we wrap it up, I also do want to shout out a few mid-major players who are staying loyal to their school. I want to say Johnny Kinziger, the brother of Zach. He's staying for his 4th year at Illinois State, which is just really cool and unheard of. And so is Chase Walker, I believe, from his team, who was the leading scorer at Illinois State, all-conference guy in the Missouri Valley Conference. He's coming back for his senior year at Illinois State, all 4 years at Illinois State, which is crazy. And then also
Impressive.
Marcus Hall from Green Bay is coming back for his 4th year at Green Bay, which I respect a lot. So shout out to those kids. I know they probably can make more money, but they were loyal to the school that believed in them and developed them. And I think that's a very cool thing and very rare. And I think in our next episode, we should cover just NIL a little bit. I see them working on perhaps making it 5 years to play, 5 years to play, and you have 5 years of eligibility. You get no waivers, which I think is just kind of a moot point at this point. But let's get into that next time. But
I would
ladies and gentlemen,
love to do that.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for making it to the end of the episode. Hit that subscribe button, show some love to the channels, and find us on the podcast platforms, TikTok, Instagram. We'll see you again soon.